Well, good morning. This is the All Saints Tuesday morning Bible study. We are glad that you're with us. As always, we hope to be with you again in person soon. We do invite you, if you haven't already, to take a look at the homepage at saintsonhigh.org. And if you're able and feel welcome to sign up and join us tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And if that sign up is filled up, we will do an identical outdoor service on Thursday at 7 p.m. in the back part of the parking lot. And we hope to see you and worship with you and simply be in community. Today in the Bible study, Bonnie and I will be looking at Romans 8:12 to 25. The theme that we're talking about all this month is the Spirit-driven freedom that Paul talked about in his letter to the Romans.
Romans 8:12 through 25. So then, brothers and sisters, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live according to the flesh. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. For all who are led by the Spirit of God are children of God. For you did not receive a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received a spirit of adoption. When we cry, Abba, Father, it is that very Spirit bearing witness with our spirit that we are children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ, if in fact we suffer with him, so that we may also be glorified with him. I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory about to be revealed to us. For the creation waits for eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For in hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what is seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience.
So this is one of those pieces of scripture that I kind of want to dumb Paul down a little bit. And say, Paul, talk like I talk.
Yes.
He's packed a lot of deep theological themes into Romans 8. All good, all worth thinking about deeply, but he's kind of a tongue twister in his style. If children, then heirs, and if heirs, then, he keeps kind of repeating his themes. So what do we make of this, Bonnie?
It is, and I think the one thing that I want to take a look at and really draw on is down from 18 on down. It says, for the great creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. I think it's important that we note when we talk about redemption, we're not just talking about redemption for people. Creation is waiting for redemption as well. And it says that for the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but of the will of the one who subjected it. Now, who subjected creation in this futility?
Yeah.
And that was Adam. Adam is the one who, by his transgressions, and so I think sometimes we think that by Adam's transgressions, his sin, that people suffered. Certainly Adam and Eve suffered, but what we don't always claim to be truth is that the whole of creation suffered. It wasn't just people.
Mhm.
And so, for me, this is so rich because it's a reminder of who we are. Now, again, I'm going to read this, where it says, "For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God."
Yeah. I see a lot of Paul speaking about the leading of God's Spirit in this text. A Spirit who allows us to cry out, Abba, Father. A Spirit who again, we wait for that Spirit to set free the creation from bondage. A Spirit who leads us to live in the ways of life. Paul spoke a lot at the beginning about being led by the Spirit. And I thought maybe we might also hit on that topic about the ways that you and I maybe have experienced this leading of the Spirit in both our lives.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly the leading of the Spirit for me, and the piece, I think, too, with the leading of the Spirit here is that this is all about relationship. Mm-hmm. So how does the Spirit lead us into a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ? And I think for me, one of the things clearly was my call to go to seminary. That was for me, without a doubt, led by the Spirit. There was no, given my own choice, I never would have gone.
Right.
Because I was dealing with the things of the flesh. Mm-hmm. I was dealing with a job that I was going to be secure in after 12 years. Mm-hmm. I was dealing with having a pretty good salary and a good package at that time. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was thinking of all of the things of the flesh. Mm-hmm. But the Spirit moved me to think about other things.
I was, the Monday video that I'm going to be putting out this coming Monday, that again will talk about Romans 8:12 to 25. I kind of think about this unique dichotomy between the fact that we have free will, but that we have a Spirit of God leading us maybe in such a way that is so compelling, so beautifully holy, that we can't do anything but follow God's leading. And I kind of feel like I hear a bit of that in this text. We have received a spirit of adoption. Not a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, a spirit that not only wants to redeem all the earth, but draws us in. And I'm just kind of fascinated by this idea that I can have my own will and I can want my own way, but thanks be to God that I have a God who is always nudging, prodding, drawing me to live in the ways of love and life. Despite my own will.
Mm-hmm. But I also think it speaks to the fact that we still, with the Spirit dwelling within us, tend toward the ways of the flesh. Mm-hmm. And that's where that revealing of the children of God. So we might go, wait a minute, aren't the children of God revealed?
Yeah.
I mean, so aren't we already? Well, what that short phrase is saying is that we need to start acting like children of God.
Yeah.
You know how children are. Children will act out at the least little thing, you know, and we're no different. We are. It's not either or. It's both and.
Yeah.
We are children of God, and yet we still have our temper tantrums, and we like to have our own way. Mm-hmm. So, while we are children of God and we have the Spirit dwelling within us, the question is, when are we going to live as if we believe we have the Spirit dwelling within us?
That's such a good point. Paul uses the term adoption.
Yes.
And I thought that word kind of stuck out to me. No matter the time or society, I think we all kind of have an idea that adopted means that we have been chosen, that we have been accepted as family. But to your point, Bonnie, it would be as if I had been adopted, but I wasn't acting as if I was part of that family.
Yes.
I know that the mother and father who adopted me have a deep love and a desire to call me their own, but yet it would be like me huffing and puffing and saying, you're not my mom and dad, and,
Yes.
and acting as if I'm not loved and I haven't been adopted, accepted. And that is a good metaphor, I think, for how we behave with
Yes.
God. We know, most of us, obviously a lot of people don't know the deep love of God, but at least the people watching today and you and I, we know the love that God has for us. We talk about it all the time. We affirm it. We sing about it. And yet, we don't always live as if we believe it,
Oh, yes.
or as if we have it the way we do.
Yes. And so that whole sentence there, for creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God, is that in not acting as if we're adopted children of God, we too create pain for creation. And it may be unintentional, but we still do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting point. To the point where you said, though, that we are adopted, I think there is, it may be subtle for us, but here's something that, as I was reading through this, it's like, okay, wait a minute, what is going on here? So Paul talks about that we are children of God. We've been adopted. We're children of God. But then if you go down to verse 23, and not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit grown inwardly, look at this, while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. So here's the question, are we adopted or are we waiting for adoption?
To be adopted.
Right. And the key here is Pauline theology.
Mm-hmm.
It's the already but not yet.
Yeah.
We're already adopted, but we're waiting for that full adoption. We don't have all of the privileges, I guess you might say, of the Son of God.
I would even say we haven't fully lived into
Yes.
it.
Yes.
So he does. It's that both and,
Yes.
that already not yet. We have been adopted by God. We have been called then children of God.
Yes.
We are being led by God. He even says heirs of God.
Yes.
And I think he's using that language to fully, to speak to a people who at that time, to be an heir meant that you had this special like gift kind of coming to you.
Yes.
For people who may have not felt that they wouldn't have been Jewish, or to fully unpack the Gentile relationship, he's using that term heir. And so I lost my train of thought, but I think the point of it is, yes, we know that we're adopted. We know that we have this love of God, but we haven't fully lived into it. Again, that already not yet is a good term. We know it, we say we believe it, but we haven't fully accepted it, or we haven't fully lived into it.
Right.
And that's the life of a believer.
Yes.
Is this tension between sin dwelling within me, being led by the Spirit, knowing I'm loved by God, but not always quite fully believing I'm loved by God. Claiming, yes, I know, God, that you forgive me, but do you really forgive me? It's that ongoing tension. And I think most of us would like to think that we're on the fully faithful side of that tension, but we're not.
Right.
We kind of hang on that line of allowing God to lead us, believing and living into that leading of God, and then falling back into fear and doubt and sin.
Mm-hmm. And even children of God, unfortunately, think in this way. This is a thought in the culture in which we live, is that I can do anything I want as long as it doesn't affect anyone else. So I'm okay to do anything I want as long as it doesn't affect anyone else.
Yeah.
The problem with that kind of thinking, especially in the body of Christ, is that every choice we make and every action we take affects the entire body.
Yeah.
You cannot do something in this world that doesn't affect someone or creation. And so, in essence, even we as children of God are guilty of rationalizing our selfish nature and saying that, well, I'm not hurting anyone. That's not the point. And the point really is that, you know what, we are hurting someone. Adam and Eve made a very selfish choice to eat of the fruit, and they probably thought they weren't hurting anyone but themselves, and the reality was they hurt all of us and all of creation. So our actions do affect everyone. So as people of God, I think that it's wise for us to take a step back and say, okay, now, if I choose to do this, how is that going to affect other people? Now, and I know, and I probably shouldn't bring this up, but you and I have them. Abby's wearing her mask, and this is a simple mask. So we tend to take this and say, yeah, I don't want to, I'm not going to wear my mask because I'm only hurting myself if I don't wear it. The reality is we're hurting others when we don't wear it too.
Yeah.
So if we don't wear it, we're making a selfish choice. And in the body of Christ, it should be, well, what does it hurt to wear my mask if I'm protecting you? So I want to share with you my experience on how a mask protected me. So last week I received a phone call that said that I had come in contact with someone who tested positive for COVID-19. And so I called my physician and we chatted, and what we talked about was that both of us were wearing masks and both of us were physically distanced. And so it should be okay. I wasn't wearing my mask that day for me, I was wearing my mask that day for others. But I had to be tested. And fortunately, I'm negative. But what I've learned from that is this protects other people. This protects other people. And so my decision now on wearing a mask is not going to be selfish. You know, yes, I get hot. And yes, my glasses steam up. And yes, there are all kinds of things that I don't like about wearing this mask. But what I learned last week is when I wear this mask, I'm protecting the other. Had she not had her mask on that day, and I did, there would have been a higher risk. But by both of us. So our actions do affect everyone around us, except that we live in the flesh. And we rationalize and say, I don't have to wear a mask because it's for my protection.
Or, you know, we say it's my choice.
Right.
But this has become, for a lot of us, an act of love.
Yeah.
We put this on, again, not almost to fight against selfishness, to say I may be asymptomatic, and God forbid, but if I am asymptomatic and I am carrying COVID-19, I want to have this on so that I don't unknowingly pass it to somebody else.
Right.
And so this, for you and I, has become an act of love.
Absolutely.
Now, please note on Sunday, when you see Bonnie and I not wearing it on camera, we have physically distanced from the 10 people who gather to tape and help make Sunday morning happen. But when we get out of the camera shot, we put it back on. And so I feel that we want to let you all know that we continue to do that as an act of love and safety for those who we would be around.
And we do it for speaking purposes. And you know, Pastor Scott and I know we sit physically distanced, and we don't wear it while we're on screen because we want to be heard. I think the gospel needs to be heard. And so it's amazing to me how something this small can demonstrate our love of neighbor as ourselves.
It has become kind of a symbol. I see a lot of colleagues and friends on Facebook, and when you see them with a mask on, it has become kind of a symbol of love, that I care enough about my neighbor to put on the mask. And so yes, we Again, but this all plays into that already, not yet.
Yes.
That tension between the will and the Spirit
Yes.
of God and the flesh. In Romans 8, Paul talks a lot about the flesh. He even begins verse 12, if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. But again, that tension is always, always with us. As Lutherans, we talk a lot about that tension, and we feel it, we live it daily. That want to not put the mask on, to be free from anything that might confine me or dictate how I am to live, and yet the leading of the Spirit that dwells in us, telling me, love your neighbor, put the mask on, be as safe as possible.
I think, not to interrupt,
No,
but
please.
I believe that Spirit-driven freedom is that the Spirit dwells within us and helps us be free to make choices that push outward, and not choices that are best for myself, but choices that are best for all of creation and God's creation.
It's all about a selfless attitude and not a selfish attitude. And so, yes, we deal with that daily. We live in that tension. And thanks be to God that the Spirit of God does lead, does call us adopted and beloved. And how can we do anything but follow that loving leading?
And live in that hope.
And live in that hope. You want to wrap up with that point?
Certainly, I think that's good.
I have a colleague who always says, you don't have to say everything to say something. And Bonnie and I, as pastors, we have to remind ourselves sometimes, you could unpack this. We could be talking till 1 p.m. today. We'll leave it at that. We'll pick up next Tuesday at the same time. We thank you, as always, for continuing to join us on YouTube and on Facebook. Please, if you have any comments, if you have any questions about this text, email us or leave a comment under the video in YouTube or on Facebook. We have a team of people that check those comments, and we will do what we can to get back to you. We love this dialogue, the ongoing dialogue that we can have with you. Have a good week, and hopefully tomorrow night and the next night we'll see some of you.